You absolutely have to question every bit of news that you have heard since 2012, when this act was passed, and which gave the American government the power and legality to produce propaganda for Americans. Think about that. They were able to produce propaganda for Americans legally, legally, so that if they ever were called out, then they could say, well, we have this very legal act that allows us to do as such. And Obama did this very quiet. This is why Alex Jones questions events like Sandy Hook. This is why people question events like the George Floyd riots. This is why people question even the 2012 campaign to demonize some African leader named, what was his name? Coney or something? Obama did this very quietly, extremely quietly, because he had to. Of course, you don't want to announce to the American people that, hey, look, we can produce propaganda that is aimed at you guys, and we need you to be aware of that. No, that would not serve their purpose. What would serve their purpose is to have this act being passed very quietly, and it was very quietly allowed for the production of propaganda. And then it added a new direction, which was inside America, which is essentially no different to what China produces for its people, even though what China produces uh, for its people is seeking to benefit the societal productivity of its people. This act of 2012, we can't really say the same for that, can we? We can't really say. Because what have we seen the rise of since 2012? We've seen the rise of transgenderism. We've seen the rise of a notion that children can give consent to acts that they shouldn't be able to give consent to. We've seen the rise of race-related events that ultimately divide the races, ultimately divide the people along ideological lines. And we have to ask ourselves every time we hear a piece of news, is that news something that has actually happened, or is it a production being produced underpinned by the legality of the Smith-Mundt Act of 2012? You have to ask yourself that. For example, this submarine implosion, the Titan submarine implosion that happened when a group of tourists wanted to go see the Titanic. When was the last time that you heard of people, just regular people, wanting to go see the Titanic? When? And if this mini submarine was of such low quality at this date, then how were the other ones of higher quality? Could it be that this entire production of this news is meant to take the attention away from something else that is happening somewhere in the American government. And so the promotion of this news, even though we do not even know if it's real, we've never heard of the people on those in that sub. Um, Most of us barely knew that this service even existed. So the questions that we would have to ask would be, okay, this happened, but I didn't know that this was a thing that could happen. I did. I didn't certainly know. I didn't know that there were people who were actively going down to the Titanic to see it. I had no idea, none whatsoever. And the question that I asked myself was, "Oh, is that a thing that happens? And if so, why has it happened so safely before, but this time it failed in a catastrophic way that it caused such loss of life that it dominated the news cycle for days, days. And you have to ask yourself, is it real? Did it actually happen? We don't know. We really don't know. Because when we look with a critical eye at what images we have seen from this supposed submarine implosion, is a few pictures of a debris of some sort and a story. Debris and a story. And a story that people seem willing to accept as true because it's told by so many quote unquote reputable sources. If this event never actually occurred and instead was a psyop, a psychological operation, the American government would have full authority to produce it. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 gives the American government the legal right to produce what is essentially a lie and present it as truth. It gives the US government the legal right to do this. So that if someone were to ever discover the truth of the matter and bring it forth to a court, then any arguing attorney for the US government could say, well, we are allowed to do this because of this Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. Case closed. And if you've never heard of the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, it's probably on purpose because something like that would not be something you would want the general populace to know existed. You would want as few people as possible to know that propaganda could be produced, focused inward, not outward, but inward for the people, for the American people themselves. You would not want the American people to know that not only is there a legal right to do so, but you would then have to question what other events that happened since the time of its passing were of the same nature. You would not want people asking those questions because then those questions lead to answers that obviously did not fulfill the questions you originally had regarding that event. I mean, I'm not a fan of Alex Jones, but I can fully understand why he questions Sandy Hook or any school shooting or anytime the media decides to cover one story more so than the other. And to read from the new Smith-Mundt Act itself, let me quote a line from it. So now, first, let me quote a line from the original 1948 Act, which said, among the provisions of the 1948 Act was the creation of an information service to disseminate abroad information about the United States, its people, its policies. And the major vehicle through which was done was the development of an international broadcasting station commonly known as the VOA, the Voice of America. Now, for those who don't know, the Voice of America was a radio station popular in the 80s where you would have basically foreigners from other nations giving their news about America in their native languages to their foreign countries. The Voice of America, which today is a very powerful institution, was born from the Smith-Mundt Act of 1948. Few people know this, and more should. Now, the upgrade that the Smith-Mundt Act got under President Obama was a powerful one, to say the least, because, and I quote, it authorizes the Secretary and the Board, the Secretary of State and the Board, to make available in the United States, motion pictures, films, video, audio, and other materials prepared for dissemination abroad or disseminated abroad pursuant to such act. That same information that was prepared for abroad can be repurposed to be prepared for inward, for the American people, for you. You in the years since 2012, you might have heard of a piece of news, whether it be about white supremacy, whether it be about just any kind of topic you could imagine. You could have heard a piece of news that was wholly invented and wholly underpinned by the modernization of this act. That is something to really think about. Think about what has happened since 2012 until now that you have looked at and thought, that sounds strange. That sounds like it shouldn't be possible or it shouldn't be morally accepted. And yet it is. And you wonder, why isn't there a law against promotion of that specific topic? And the reason why is because of the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012, which was brought to life by President Obama. And that's why. So think of, say, the Michael Brown affair, where I forgot where it was, but I guess he was somewhere in Ferguson, and he was shot by a policeman. Was he? Really? I mean, did that really happen? Or George Floyd? Those cops who were around that video, who are they? Were they actors? This is where we sort of drift into the realm of conspiracy theories and crisis actors, because we kind of have to, in that there is a legal right for the American government to hire a crisis actor to play a role to promote a agenda. This actually exists. It exists, and it exists for anyone to see, for anyone with the inclination to go and research it and see it, and it's right there. It's right there. That's all I wanted to say about that. And I wanted to say it in a way that hopefully people, my people, our Black people, will go into their libraries and their online sources and actually look at what the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 actually allows America, your nation, my former nation, what it actually allows them to tell you is true, but maybe is not. That's all I'm going to say. Good night.